I would like to call to order the December 11th, 2023 regular school board meeting of Community Unit School District 303 at 5:00 p.m. Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll?
Yes, Mrs. Bell. Here. Mr. Kuschert.
Here.
Mr. Lackner.
Here.
Mr. Lentz.
Here.
Mrs. McCabe.
Here.
Mr. McNally.
Here.
Mrs. Fairgreen.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn to closed session for the purposes of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. And second, the placement of individual students in special education programs and other matters relating to individual students.
So moved. Second.
Thank you for the first and the second. Ms. Marsan, please take roll call vote.
Yes, Mr. Kuschert.
Yes.
Mr. Lackner.
Yes.
Mr. Lentz.
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe.
Yes.
Mr. McNally.
Yes.
Mrs. Bell.
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgreen.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. We will adjourn at 5:03 p.m. for closed session. Okay, the board is now back in open session on Monday, December 11th, 2023 at 6:00 PM. Ms. Marsan, would you please take roll?
Yes, Mr. Lackner,
Here.
Mr. Lentz,
Here.
Mrs. McCabe,
Here.
Mr. McNally,
Here.
Mrs. Bell,
Here.
Mr. Kuschert,
Here.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Here. We'll now move to section 4 on the agenda, which is a public hearing related to a tax levy hearing specifically. I would like to open the public hearing to adopt the aggregate tax levy for 2023 on December 11th at 6:01 PM. There is a document in the agenda that lists our current cash balances as of June 30th, 2023, as well as November 30th, 2023. This is an opportunity to make a public statement about the tax levy. This is a separate agenda item from public comment, which will take place later in our meeting. Are there any community members that would like to make a comment concerning the tax levy? If so, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Frank Esposito. And I must say, this is the first time I've come to a school board meeting. But I have been involved with the Kane County Board in their effort to raise the tax rate for the following year. So when I heard that the school board was in the process of, and correct me if I'm wrong, something like 6.75% to raise the rate, I became a little concerned. Okay. I should explain, I'm retired. I worked as an internal auditor for Sears Roebuck and Company back when it was #1 for 20 years. Then I ran my own printing business for 22 years. So I think I have an idea of how to run a business. Now I know that you're not running a business, and the most important thing is the education of our children. I don't have any children at my age, but I have 2 grandchildren, and I'm very interested that they're getting the best education they possibly can get. So I see some online that our students in this district at they're at 53%. I may have the percentages backwards, proficient at their levels for reading and 52% for mathematics. That may sound good, but to me that isn't, because that leaves 47 and 48% that are not at the level that they should be. Now, I would ask that you try to do everything you possibly can to educate all the children to their best capability. But at the same time, please take into consideration the constituents here that are paying the taxes. Like I said, I'm retired. I am very fortunate that I own my own home. But there are people that are facing 6.35%, I think was the last I had heard, for mortgages. I've read from something from CNBC that 20% of people in this country are living paycheck to paycheck. So if you increase the rate, and I should also say the appraised value of my unit has just gone up. If what I did an analysis. If I take the new appraised value and the rates as they appeared the last time, I would pay an additional $700 to $800 more. And that's without taking any increases at all. Now, the board wanted to, time is up. Okay.
If you're able to finish quickly, that's fine. Please finish your comments.
Well, my basic concern is be good stewards. Try to do the best you possibly can to use every dollar that you can have available to you. But keep in mind, you also have to be responsible to the taxpayers We want our children educated, but don't make us go broke in the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Bland, and I just had a foster son graduate that we raised. Is this better? Okay, thank you. My name is Richard Bland, and I've just had a foster son that we raised graduate from high school here. My background is the electronics industry. And one of the things that I learned there is if you want to improve a product, cut the cost. Don't go along with the excuse that, well, we've cut the cost, it can go down. No, in the electronics industry, the quality, everything is better. To give you a real quick illustration, look at television. Our first television was bought in about 1948, weighed about 80 pounds. Mom and dad it took to carry it from table to table. It cost $600 in money that day. And translate that into today's dollars. Now you can buy a color television set that a 5-year-old can carry. 16-inch, $100. I would like to see the educational community look at doing things like that. How can we reduce the cost and improve what we're doing? One of the things that aggravated me very much was that his counselor or somebody sent me an email that said that he couldn't get a diploma unless he applied for a scholarship. I understand that's state law. I sent a note, which I never got a response to that person. And I said, this is kind of stupid. The state has no business telling people that they have to apply for something to get a diploma that says that I've done all the academic work I'm supposed to. I think that the schools need to take a firm attitude with the government of the state of Illinois, who has a phenomenal ability to come up with screwball ideas, and oppose those and try to arrange for them to be corrected and not perpetrated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Diana Soltis, and I'm a D303 resident. And I'm here because this board is proposing a 6.76% tax increase. How many families can withstand a 5% Kane County increase, a 5% City of St. Charles increase, 5% from the school board last year, and nearly 7% this year? You talk about diversity. How diverse will our community be when no one can afford to live here? You speak about equity, yet who is hurt the most by the tax hikes? You say that there should be inclusion. Well, you do include everyone in the tax levy. So what about social emotional learning? How is a child's social and emotional learning impacted when he or she is well aware that their family is struggling financially to put food on the table and cover the basics? Instead, why don't we get rid of these Marxist programs that eat up so much time, attention, and especially the finances? Go back to the basics of teaching math, English for all learners, real science, and real social studies. So the 50% average test scores aren't abhorrent, and so that kids would actually know what that word means. Additionally, I think focus needs to be put on the 5-year strategic plan, putting achievement first instead of last in the list of things. That's what a school is intended to be. Time and focus need to be spent on reducing the significant layers of administration so there's enough teachers and assistants to properly staff and educate the children of the district. The 5-year budget that's prudent and fiscally responsible is to teach the children first, maintain facilities appropriately so they don't fall into disarray and cost significantly more to fix later down the line and hit people harder. And you must go very hard and fast to the questions that must be eliminated in order to change. What must be eliminated in order to change? What genuinely needs attention, like we all have to do in this day and age with the strained economic times, and it doesn't look like it's going to be getting any better anytime soon. The bottom line is that it's our money you're spending. Do it wisely, prudently, and in a fiscally sound manner. We all have to maintain within budget. Please look at those line items, particularly administration, particularly programs, and spend prudently, wisely now and in the future. Thank you very much and Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Mark Teatree, and I was not prepared to speak tonight. This is my first one, but driving over here, I just couldn't help thinking of the percentage I pay in school taxes being recently retired. Just a quick background. My entire family is pretty much education, first responders, and military. My two uncles were in education. My one uncle taught at Gompers Junior High School in Joliet. The other one was a World War II fighter pilot who retired from Elk Grove Village as a physics teacher in 1984. And my dad retired from John Hersey High School in 1992 as associate principal. So I was raised with all this, all the education. I'm a 76 graduate from Arlington. But when my dad passed in 2011 and being co-executor of his estate, had to understand the income. So I'm very familiar with the Illinois Teachers Retirement Program. It's an excellent program. And having a conversation with my dad, I said, Dad, I said, this is, you were very blessed with this. And he goes, Mark, he goes, I earned every penny. But he said, the problem is down the road, these school districts are going to keep taxing and taxing and taxing. One thing he made it very clear, because I came from the business world, and we'd always talk about incompetent vice presidents in the business world. And he was like, you know what, son? It's no different in the education world. I sit back and I listen to some of the questions I'd ask him and his answers in terms of some of the administrators in 214. A lot of good ones, a lot of bad ones. The thing that I want to say is, just because you can come up here and pass a tax increase doesn't make it right. And I asked my dad, I said, how is this going to stop? He said, the only way this will stop, and again, talking about an associate principal from District 214 who understood the system. He said, the only way this is going to stop is when the public wakes up and does something about it. Well, this public person has woken up, and I wanted to communicate that. And I just want to say thank you for the time. You guys have a great Christmas holiday and spend our money wisely. And I say that again, spend our money wisely. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Whittington. I'm a 40-plus year District 303 resident. I don't really have any prepared comments, but echoing what some of the other people have said about now being the wrong time to be considering another tax increase. We all can see what it's costing us to go to a grocery store now. And I don't know if you may have seen a Wall Street Journal headline right from today. Do you know that since Joe Biden got elected, so a little less than 3 years, the average monthly cost of a home is doubled? It used to be about $1,750. It's now approaching $3,500 a month. So you want to take in and raise taxes even further. So that 3,500, with all the other districts that are trying to consider raising, and you're being the lion's share of that, that 3,500 is going to go up even more. And I can tell you with, anecdotally, my daughter got married a year ago. Okay. And she says, Dad, I want to buy a house. I said, no, it's not the right time. You really shouldn't be doing that now. You need to get a little bit more established. Well, they bought a townhome. I helped them buy it. I'm a broker. I helped them buy a home over in Harvest Hills. So I think it's in the same district of this. And wouldn't you know, then my son-in-law's student loans started to kick in just 2 months ago. And I'm having a budget meeting with them every month to try to see if they can make it work. So we just can't afford this. And let me just say one other thing. So where could you cut costs? Well, I think we just have way too much administration, especially for the quality of the teaching. I don't want to really cast aspersion on teachers. I know they're trying to do their best, but what is being taught now today versus the teaching methods that were taught when I was in school are completely different. And I'm not surprised that reading scores are way down. I actually I had a meeting with the superintendent and some of his administrators, and I asked him, do you teach diagramming sentences? And they looked at me like I was crazy. And they, one of them spoke up and said, oh, studies show that doesn't help at all. I said, really? Learning how to diagram a subject, a verb, and an object, learning what pronouns are. Was my time up? I didn't know that. Okay. But just very quickly, I can tell you that my studies show that it does work. All my fellow classmates, it worked for them. And I want to go back to regular teaching methods. Let's get rid of some of these administrators that aren't really adding anything to the quality of education. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Batag. I'm in district as well. And I just want to come back. I can't believe we're back here again asking for more money. It's unbelievable that we are out of 3,200 counties plus in the country, that we're in the top 2% of taxes in this county, in the collar counties of Chicago. A lot of good counties have great school districts, great places to live. And here we are paying this and asking for more. Some people don't have a problem with, paying their fair share, but 80% of our tax bill, just about 80%, goes to the school board. Now, being on the board, comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of work. I understand that. But, when a time comes for more money, is there time to be looking at this? Are you guys looking at the figures? I don't know how it works, but this is where we need to do this. We're outpricing everybody in this district. People are credit card bills are higher than they've ever been in the country. The highest they've ever been, the balances on credit cards. We all are struggling. People aren't, not just taking vacations. The grocery stores are dead. I talked to people who are in the frozen food industry, and they can't believe how hard their businesses are being hurt. People are hurting. And, it's just like our homes. We have to reduce the costs and just to pass something through because the need is there is very irresponsible. And I'm asking for the people on the board to please not just pass the buck to the next year and the next year and the next year. Do the time and find out. I mean, that's why I took the job, right? And is to take the time and look at the budget and try to reduce the cost. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eric Anderson. I've had the pleasure of speaking with a few of you on either email or phone, so thank you for your time. I want to start off by saying I've been actually nothing but impressed by the education here in St. Charles. We moved our family here to get a quality education. I have two daughters. I think so far you guys have done a great job. But I think a lot of the commentary here holds true. Like quick Google search, 19% inflation since 2020. Like that's unsustainable just from like a broader economic standpoint. I've had to have my taxes raised for various reasons multiple times. And quite frankly, the comments around like how sustainable is this as a community are ultra valid. I mean, just quick show of hands in the audience, who's getting a 6% raise this year? One got one, good, one, excellent. So I find it hard to figure out who is going to be paying for this. How are we going to do it? Right? And in a world where everything is eroding the earnings power of the families, this increase is just so poorly timed. I'm agreeing that there are circumstances that would dictate necessary increases. But then we make decisions on growing expenses. We've changed the boundary lines here to force the purchase and extension of schools. Who's like, is that what we're funding our tax money for? We're putting in mobile units in Richmond, right down the street. We're going to buy refurbished units. Like I mean, the prudency that this board needs to apply to our funds that we are paying needs to be reconsidered. We're making some really poor decisions that, quite frankly, I haven't come to expect from this board. Like I said, I think you guys have done a phenomenal job in the past. I think this is a moment where we can all reconsider and appreciate the timeliness of these conversations. Thank you.
Good evening, Brian Anderson. I didn't come to speak, but after listening to some of the citizens in the audience, I hopped on your website and pulled up your school board mission statement, if you will. Provide learning opportunities responsive to the whole student, which prepares them for life after District 303, which I would agree. I think the first gentleman that spoke, I think he was probably alluding to a group here in the state of Illinois called WirePoint. And currently 303 staggering just 53% for math, 52 for reading. So as this last gentleman spoke and he talked about the excellence, that's fine. The bar is low. And I think that in this affluent community, we can do much better. I'm all for raising taxes. If our students were rolling out in the 80s and 90 percentile and we're competing, that's not the case. Board, elected by the people. Timing. This is not the right time. Economically, we're very vulnerable right now. Mortgage rates are skyrocketing. Unemployment in the state of Illinois is the 5th worst in the nation, and it's not getting better. Large corporations, read any news media you'd like. Layoffs are coming. Mortgages are up. Unemployment is high. This is not the right time. So I'm encouraging each and every one of you to look in the mirror and ponder, is this the right time? It's not. The one woman alluded Kane County. That's correct. There's 3,142 counties in the state or in the country. Kane County ranks 32, one of the highest counties in the nation for taxes. We don't need to be raising more taxes. Yeah, I heard a lot of the people talk and, a lot of it's out of your control. Okay, it really is. It's out of your control. Here's what is in your control. You can get together and say, we're going to take a courageous stand and we're going to pause and let's reevaluate in 2025 or 2026. But the expectation is to pause and ponder. This is not the right time. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Freddie Laureano. I am a Mexican American, and one lady mentioned about equity and diversity. Trust me, we will not be living here. We will not. And if you want diversity in your community, this cannot occur. Raising taxes, I mean, Illinois has been seeing a flood of people leaving, and it's because of high taxes. Our taxes are going to continue to increase if you start increasing taxes again on us. I'm a kid from the city of Chicago, born and raised, slept on the floor till 10 years old, slept in the very poor neighborhood, lived in a very poor neighborhood. But I rose from that because my parents taught me to be responsible, to be respectful, and to serve your community. Because my parents came here, unfortunately. They came here illegally, and that was the only crime they've ever committed. They retired, they bought a home, they were able to go back to Mexico, and I want to make sure that other kids like me have an opportunity. We came here to St. Charles, we left the city of Chicago because of the gangs, because of the violence, because of the shootings, because of the taxes. And now I'm here in St. Charles, which is a beautiful place to raise a family, beautiful, great schools. We saw the schools. My wife's an educator. I'm an educator. We both have master's degrees, and our parents taught us to work hard, dedicate yourself to your studies, be better than us, give your kids an opportunity that we never had. My parents couldn't go to school because in Mexico, when you're in third grade, you're old enough to go help out on the farm, and that's where you go. My parents had to leave school, and they taught us, educate yourself, be better than us, raise your children, make sure that they go to good schools, and provide for them. So if you're going to raise our taxes, like a lot of the individuals have said here today, make sure you really focus on what those tax dollars are going to do. Our children are not doing well in this district as far as their overall proficiency. It is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. I'm an educator too. My salary is around $71,000. Okay, it's public record. I don't mind who knows, because I serve the community. I work for those parents, just like all of them who work here. They work for you, they work for us, and we have to hold them accountable, because if not, our children are not going to succeed. They are not. You know, it's unfortunate that we live here in St. Charles and we are having to go through this. I didn't come here to speak about the tax levy, but I came here for something else, and you'll hear about that a little bit later. And I'm sure it's probably impacting you too. And again, I just hope that you really, really look at how you're spending our dollars. Okay, our teachers, yes, they deserve the salary that they're earning, but make sure that you're providing them with good administrators that are going to hold them accountable, that are going to make sure that they're implementing the curriculum with fidelity and making sure that our students are actually learning and being provided with the resources that they need to be successful. Because we have a lot of beautiful things posted on the board. I'm so sorry. Could I have just one more minute? Thank you. We have a lot of these great things that we post on our websites, but who is really making sure that those are being implemented? And not just implemented just to implement, but with fidelity. Make sure that our kids are actually learning, and make sure that we follow standards and have rigorous standards that our children can meet and have the resources to meet those needs. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that participation. The public hearing is now closed. It is 6:29 PM. Moving to section 5 on the agenda, which is for action. Can I have a motion that the board denies the uniform grievance complaint and directs the board president to issue a written decision pursuant to board policy 2.260, reflecting the board's vote, discussion in closed session, and investigation reporting?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lentz. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Lackner. Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Yes, Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. And now we will move to section 6 on the agenda, which is citizen comments. Mr. Lackner, would you please read the preamble?
Thank you. During the public comment period, members of the public body who wish to speak are asked to first state their name and community in which they reside. Each individual will have up to 3 minutes to address the board on a topic of their choosing. We ask all individuals who address the board to do so with respect and civility towards others. Please note that personnel matters are sensitive and confidential. We also want to inform our speakers that all regular, special, and committee meetings are live streamed and available for viewing at any time on the district's YouTube channel. Personal information should be considered before making a statement that will be recorded and made public. While the board will not respond to today's public comment during this meeting, we are committed to listening to you to help support our work for the district and on behalf of our students, staff, families, and community members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lackner. I would like to call forward Mr. Lowell Bike.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lowell Bike, and I'm a 17-year resident of the Timbers neighborhood. Thank you for the opportunity to provide our neighborhood objective feedback of the 2 high school boundary concepts created by RSP. Our neighborhood currently attends St. Charles. Under concept 1, we are moved to St. Charles East, and under concept 2, we remain at the front. Our clear preference, and frankly, the most logical choice, is to move forward with concept. There are 2 main reasons why concept 1 will not work. The logistical challenges created by moving to a school on the other side of town and the impact it will have on the mental health of children. The Timbers neighborhood, or Timberhood, as our came out in force. The Timbers Hood is currently a safe 3 to 4 minute drive to St. Charles North. By moving Timbers children to St. Charles East, you will have teen drivers turning left at the dangerous 31 and 64 intersection during busy morning traffic. In 2022 alone, there were 73 accidents that took place on the route from the Timbers neighborhood to St. Charles East. Now add teens rushing to and from school, and I suspect that number will increase. To avoid that unsafe intersection, they could go north on Route 31 to the Red Gate Bridge, passing St. Charles North along the way, school they should be attending. This violates secondary criteria 3, transportation considerations, boundaries that consider transportation logistics, including bus route efficiency and length of time students spend on bus. Moving the Timbers to St. Charles East would add a minimum of 40 hours of travel time to each child's life every single year. That is time these students could spend studying, working part-time jobs, socializing with friends, or in the case of my middle daughter, doing her eyelashes. She needs those 40 hours. In addition, the board's secondary boundary criteria 2 states the board seeks to find boundaries that minimize the number of current students that have to change schools. According to the statistics provided by RSP, high school student growth is anticipated to be only 30 students in the next 5 years, and will actually be 700 students less than enrollment was at the 2 schools in 2012-2013. And under concept 2, both high schools remain under 100% utilized through 2027-2028. In short, the data does not support any students having to change high schools. Regarding the mental health issues this will create, as multiple studies have concluded, the COVID lockdowns drove significant learning loss and anxiety. Many students are finally starting to recover, but changing schools now would reverse some of those gains and create unnecessary anxiety. The children of the Timbers grew up with many ties to St. Charles North, such as previous family members attending North, going to sports camps, musicals, and attending sporting events. My youngest daughter recently received an email about attending St. Charles North Future Freshman Night next month. She is so excited about following in her older sister's footsteps and can't wait to attend. 15 more seconds. If concept 1 is selected, I ask the board to please consider grandfathering in students who currently attend North. I also ask you to include current middle school students as grandfather legacy students, as they've been planning to attend North for years. Forcing families to have high school students at 2 different high schools next year could create tremendous logistical issues for families. If transportation is the issue, then please allow parents the option to have their current or legacy students stay at North and let them take on the responsibility of driving their students to school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. May I ask Ms. Dana Halper to come forward?
Good evening to the District 303 Board and Administration. I come to you as a concerned parent, educator, and community member. As a school administrator myself, I do not dismiss the difficulty in the decisions you have to make as a board and as administrators. In June of this year, administration presented and the board approved a strategic plan. Of those strategic priorities are effective communication and a culture of dignity. While I can commend both the board and administration for their engagement of the community during this time and what you may believe is effective collaboration, I cannot help but see your own strategic priority, culture of dignity, being questioned at this time. To your definition, a culture of dignity means to ensure equitable policies, programs, and infrastructures that promote access, excellence, and accountability. A couple of weeks ago, presentations were made regarding scenarios A and B to adjust school boundaries to deal with overcrowding of current schools, more specifically, many of the elementary schools. In your own words, you're looking for a compromise with the least amount of disruption. But that being said, in these scenarios, it seems there's a larger impact of disruption on a few neighborhoods, mine included, Anthem Heights, with no disruption to others at all. I ask you, how does this seem equitable? I understand you're being asked to solve a very difficult problem, one that has many facets, and in no way will you be able to please everyone. But I do know that there's other solutions to this problem that are not currently being looked at. As a taxpayer, community member, and a parent, I have significant concerns on the scenarios presented. One of those solutions thus far is to shift the boundaries and send many students to Richmond Davis and purchase mobile classrooms. Mobile classrooms for kindergartners through fifth grade students should not be considered at all. Students who would be moved to Richmond Davis would be inequitably being served by this district, again, in direct opposition of your own strategic plan. You all know as well as I do that mobile classrooms do not provide the resources that this district needs or should uphold for our students. In addition to this proposed scenario, when these students transition to Thompson, which is their current middle school, they're considering moving those mobile classrooms to account for overcrowding. In that document, you stated that those would be used for staff members, but we all know that could possibly shift to our students as well. I work in a district that has to make decisions like this. We're currently building 5 additions on 5 different buildings to address overcrowding. These additions are being completed in 1 year's time. I know it can be done because I watched the progress. If our district truly needs to address overcrowding and adjust boundaries, then it should be after we can provide adequate space for our students and not a Band-Aid like mobile classrooms. I truly cannot understand how a board of this stature and a district of this success can stand behind the use of mobile classrooms for our students. I'm not here to say don't change the boundaries. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. I get it, it's difficult, but I understand that might be your only option. I am here to say that moving students without an adequate infrastructure is equitable access to resources before those are available should not be an option. I cannot understand that this administration and board would not forward think with these overcrowding concerns. I find it difficult that our most vulnerable students, bilingual or dual language students, may be placed in mobile classrooms, to question their access and their safety to buildings. I cannot understand that the misplanning of the adults in this district, even myself included living here, will now impact our smallest, neediest students at the kindergarten through 5th grade level. I urge you as a board and as administration to look back at those scenarios or postpone boundaries until adequate and equitable spaces can be provided to all of our students, or reconsider moving it all so that none of our students anywhere in the district are placed in mobile classrooms. I do not wish that experience on anyone or any students to not have fair and equal access and opportunities to our school resources programming. I cannot help but think of the negative impact that it may have on their social and emotional well-being at such an important growth age. Please consider going back to the drawing board before moving forward and don't allow any of our students to have access to mobile classrooms. Thank you.
May I ask Ms. Rebecca Beal forward?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Beal. Some of my friends here are gonna speak to, the obvious concerns with the boundaries. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the unintended consequences. So we've got a couple of things going on. We've got raising taxes, we've got shortening the school day, and then changing schools. So one of the things that maybe you guys haven't even considered, it's not even crossed your mind, but if you shorten that school day, you cut the liberal arts programs, then something like moving to a new school and, for instance, doing orchestra, the elementary kids, they do orchestra before school. And if instead of taking the bus to school or a 5-minute drive to drop them off, we're now going 15, 20 minutes. If you're an educator or a healthcare worker and you have to be to school or work before your kid gets on the bus, now all of a sudden they can't do the outlet that they do have for those other than academic pursuits. Orchestra would be off the table, right? So we're already gone. There's no one to get them across town. It's just something to consider, that all these changes all at once, it's kind of a big deal. That's it.
Thank you. May I ask Mr. Eric Anderson to come forward?
Hello, me again. So first, let me say I'm glad he's the one who got the 7% raise and no one else. Because hats off to you. So I would also like to say, also from Anthem Heights, I think that there's a lot of concern in the neighborhood, as well as others that are in the same situation as us, looking at our small kids. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old daughter. Others from Anthem Heights are here. We've actually also gone around and gathered a petition to show the collective frustration with these boundary changes on both middle school and high school, but more specifically to the grade schools, right? The lady who just, presented before me spoke about the mobile trailers. And I think a few people in the audience had the realization of where some of this incremental tax dollars are going to. You guys have also cited multiple times in your board presentations concerns about mold. You guys have self-cited concerns around safety, right? As I email these concerns, there's an acknowledgement that there are legitimate fears of the safety and well-being of our kids. My 6-year-old daughter is going to be put in a mobile trailer for her education. I made a comment, maybe it was a little bit unpopular with the crowd here, but I am truly proud to be in St. Charles. Do I like my taxes going up? No, but I think that you guys want to do the best thing for our children. I think that the proposals out there are a product of good intent, or at least I'd like to believe they were. However, I think as a community, we have come here and asked you to reconsider, because at what cost to our kids is it going to come at for these reboundaries? How much danger are you going to be putting them in by eliminating the safety that comes with a school with brick walls? I walked through 2 locked doors to get into this room. How many locked doors are there going to be for the mobile trailers? So again, I like to presume good intent. I really do. I think that you guys are all here to do the right thing. And you know, none of these decisions are easy, and you're going to be impacting families with kids who have friends, who have made connections, who are progressing in their education. I'm urging you to reconsider, specifically around the border changes that would force kids into mobile trailers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthew Kling.
For the board members, thank you for your time this evening. For your consideration, I'm requesting additional clarification on the need for restructuring our elementary school boundaries. The current data provided by vendor RSP and Associates has indicated that our building utilization rates and student density projections are and will be at its greatest over the next 5 years at Norton Creek, Pearson Creek, and Coron Elementary. For the district to accommodate these growing communities, the 2 proposed concepts involved a major shift in school reassignments, shifting student population from the northwest to the southeast portion of our district. You have cited that our building resources are at its greatest in the southeast portion of our district with available K-5 schools. Both concepts include the potential use of 6 portable classrooms at Richmond. If our building utilization rates are projected to be at its greatest at Norton Creek, Pearson Creek, and Coron Elementary, wouldn't it be a reasonable solution to suggest the use of 2 portable classrooms at each of the respective aforementioned schools with capacity issues, rather than restructuring the rest of the district to meet our future needs? Please take that into consideration for your future decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. May I ask Ms. Elise Rehak to come forward, please?
Hello, my name is Elise Rehak and I live in the Timbers neighborhood in St. Charles. I have a kindergartner and a 2nd grader who attend Wild Rose Elementary. The 2 current proposals would change their elementary school to Munhall, and proposal 1 would change their high school to East. I want to speak to you tonight specifically about our transportation concerns. Our neighborhood is within walkable proximity to Wild Rose. However, our connectivity is through Timbers Park. So our students are bused due to a short distance being required on Route 31. The current driving distance is 1.2 miles compared to the 2.7 mile distance to Munhall. This more than doubles the current route. We drove both routes to Wild Rose and to Munhall at the times of day the bus picks up and drops off. The trip to Wild Rose is about 2 to 3 minutes. The trip to Munhall is about 8. As parents, we are not only concerned about the extended time on the bus, but also the travel through more dangerous intersections along Route 64. I collected data through a FOIA request about motor vehicle accidents at all major intersections along our current bus route and along intersections on Route 64. Since 2020, there have been only 3 accidents in total on the intersections on our current bus route, the Wild Rose. 3 in almost 4 years. The average is less than 1 per year. The average per year since 2020 along the route to Munhall is 37, with the highest being 51 accidents per year in 2022. This change means busing our students to a school that is more than double the distance, double the time, and 37 times more accidents in a year. Wild Rose is the safer, closer, and common sense choice for us to attend. These same concerns are mirrored in the proposed change from north to east. The distance to north is 2.7 miles versus 3.5 miles to east, but due to the congestion downtown, the trip is 3 minutes versus up to 15 minutes to east. The current middle school bus to Redling from the Timbers takes the Redgate Bridge due to congestion downtown. If the bus took this route to east, it would be a 6.7 mile trip right past St. Charles North High School. Obviously, this does not make sense. The accidents along this route are also more, with an average of 55 per year and the highest in 2022 at 73 accidents at major intersections. Our elementary school bus is consistently 15 minutes late every day after school, except for Wednesdays, because high school has early release. This allows the driver to complete her extended routes with extra time. Extending our routes by more than double is concerning when transportation is already unable to fully staff routes. We are providing you with this information to demonstrate how the Timbers neighborhood is clearly best fit to attend Wild Rose Elementary and St. Charles North. Thank you for your time.
May I invite Mr. Dick Wendt forward, please?
One item that I neglected to mention before is that It looks like we're spending over $250,000 for the classroom. The internet shows $19,000 per student per year. And if you have 20 students in a class, old-fashioned math says that's $380,000. Are we not wisely using our money if we're spending that much in a classroom? I know people will say, well, we've got a lot of overhead, administrative people and so on. I would propose that the only thing that really affects a student is where they come in contact with the teachers. Your administrative people are orders of magnitude better than the next school district to the north, which probably is the worst state. But let's make sure that we're getting biggest bang for the buck. And as I said before, give some thought to having a program where you ask your teachers to reduce costs and improve the performance. That was one of the things very common in the industrial board. Reduce cost, get a group together, brainstorm, see where it'll take you. I've made a career that uses that approach. It's taken me around the world. Well, to Japan alone for 65 times. To teach them how to do some things. And other parts of the world as well. My background is in science. It's also in education. My mother was a high school English teacher. My nephew now is a doctor from Harvard in education. He was the principal of the worst school, junior high school in Tennessee. 1 year later, when he finished his contract, he brought it up to number 18 in the state. A lot of these are things that have been mentioned tonight. And he has used those kinds of things and has made phenomenal progress.
Mr. Frank Esposito.
Didn't realize that I was signing up for something else. Well, since I've got an opportunity here for a minute, once again, please consider all us retirees that have to be able to pay these taxes that you're proposing to increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Wesson.
Evening. Thank you for your time and thank you for being here, hearing a lot of the great community members. My name is Michael Wiesa. I'm a homeowner in the Prairie Lake subdivision. We've lived in and around the St. Charles area for the last 8 or so years. We specifically moved to our neighborhood because of the access to St. Charles North. And speaking on behalf of some of the board within our own neighborhood, a lot of the same concerns that I think you've heard from others here today. Little things which aren't little, the logistics, Hidden Oaks is kind of the one of the exits out of our neighborhood to potentially come further east. Forcing students to kind of make that way is pretty dangerous. It's pretty rough just as an experienced driver trying to pick your window and hopefully not get T-boned. So there's a lot of concerns over that. Probably more concerning that a lot of us, I think, feel is just how much turmoil we would be creating by uprooting students who develop friendships, relationships. Parents have developed those same things. Is very traumatic for young ones, especially coming out of COVID and others. We don't need to do that. This is why I am who I am. I was a gentleman who got my education in a trailer at one point in Huntley High School and middle school. But I certainly would choose that over having to uproot the entire neighborhood, halfway across town. And I think a lot of residents have a hard time, not only with this for this reason, but also for the beginning topic. We're being asked to spend more money, but yet we're making decisions that don't seem to be in alignment with what the community is in need for. We care about our children, we care about their education, but we certainly don't want them impacting the lives and decisions that we've made. And probably lastly, one of the topics of discussion, at least amongst some of us in our neighborhood, has been asking why now? Why are we just kind of acting on this now? Why have we not, kind of listened to some of the stats and plans and moved quicker? And if we're trying to solve, an issue, shouldn't we be asking why first? Why are we trying to, move populations of students from one area to the other, and better understand them? But, thank you for your time. Appreciate the hard decision you have to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ashley Ward.
Hello, my name is Ashley Ward. I live in the Timbers neighborhood. So along with many of my neighbors here, just here to share some concerns about the boundary and recommendations. I have a daughter who's in second grade currently at Wild Rose, and I have a daughter who will be in kindergarten in the fall. So I was very surprised to see that in both concepts, the Timbers is being proposed to attend Munhall Elementary School instead, considering the proximity of Wild Rose Elementary to our neighborhood. Wild Rose and the Timbers neighborhoods are very connected. Many of the homes in the Timbers actually back to the Wild Rose homes. Timber Trails Park is the neighborhood park and playground for both Timbers and Wild Rose. There's a path running through that park that provides just a short walk or bike ride to school, which many of us love to take advantage of on a nice day. Wild Rose students also have used that park and field area for field trips. So it'd be very isolating to the Timbers children to exclude them from their neighborhood park or neighborhood school, sorry. I also wanted to talk about the data presented by RSP. So in all of the projections, overall enrollment in the St. Charles schools is actually trending downward in the next several years. As the current boundaries stand, Wild Rose is predicted to be over capacity only by 24 students next year. And then in the other years going forward, will be under capacity. The major capacity issues, according to the data, are with Coron, Pearson Creek, and Bell Graham. So in both of these drafts, projections show Coron over capacity again in the 28-29 school year. Pearson Creek and Bell Graham also nearing capacity in that school year. So major concern that I have is that this plan is supposed to be long-term, yet in 4 years, we're seeing overcrowding issues again. So if you continue forward with this boundary change, these students are uprooting their lives only to be put in a similar situation in just 4 years. You've heard of the additional concerns from our neighbors tonight. We're asking to please consider any option to keep the Timbers neighborhood attending Wild Rose Elementary. It makes the most sense geographically. It's our neighborhood school, and it's best for the long-term outlook of the district. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. May I ask Mr. Freddie Laureano to come forward?
Good evening. My name is Freddie Laureano, and thank you, board members, for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you tonight. And the reason that I'm here is regarding concerns for students with disabilities, students who have an IEP, which is an individualized education plan. And I just have concerns regarding the overall implementation of an IEP and making sure that there are checks and balances in place and to make sure that there's accountability to make sure that these IEPs are being implemented. Is it acceptable that a child with a disability or an IEP has great attendance, is on time, comes to school prepared, should not be passing any class, regardless if it's math, English language arts, social studies? Some of the information that I see here on your district website, success indicators for high school, attendance. This child has great attendance. Behavior, student reports a sense of belonging. This is the first time that this child feels that they belong when they went to the high school. Student has 2 or a few discipline referrals, not 1 referral, not even a reprimand as far as I know. Content, student has B or average or better. How is this child supposed to meet those success indicators if the IEP is not being implemented with fidelity? What does this district have in place to ensure that the IEP is being implemented? And again, how is the child supposed to be successful if it is not? Are teachers being provided with sufficient resources, time to read the IEP? This is a typical IEP that a teacher has to read. It's not all just about one specific subject area, but it has a lot of identifying information to make sure that those needs of that student are being met. So my concern is with the overall implementation. Our administrators holding those responsible for the implementation of the IEP, are they being held accountable? Who's going to make sure that the accommodations and modifications are being implemented? So how is a child supposed to be successful if those are not being implemented with fidelity? And it is a great concern because as far as your website is concerned, around 14% of students in District 303 in 2021 were students with a disability. How are we going to serve those students who really need our most attention, who really require us to be responsible for their needs? They have developmental delays at times. They have learning disabilities. They may be in the wheelchair or they may have problems walking. So who is going to make sure that those children have the best education possible? We talked a little bit about taxes. And again, children with disabilities, a lot of the times, don't even know what taxes are, right? They don't know what it means, but we as parents do. And we need to make sure that we are spending our hard-earned dollars effectively. Because yes, taxes are going to come up and they're going to keep coming up. And people are not going to be able to send their children to good schools. Could I have a little bit more time? Is that okay? Is that okay, Madam President? Thank you. So my concern is very basic and to the point. So what am I supposed to do as a parent? I support my child at home. I am a math interventionist. I've been teaching for a little over 11 years. So I provide a lot of supports to my child at home. So what am I supposed to do now? That's my question to do. What else can I do? What else can I do? Because I feel like a failure and my child's needs are not being met. And that hurts. That hurts if I see my child not being able to pass a class. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for all of the comments and participation from the community. Now I'd like to move to section 7 on the agenda, which is reports to the board. We will start with the superintendent's report. Dr. Gordon.
Thank you so much. We've got a couple of guests with us tonight that I'd asked to come forward. This evening, board, I want to bring you back to time when Ms. Janelle Keating was with us, talking about some of the work that we're doing within our district. And tonight, really pleased to have 2 outstanding educators with us, Dr. Natalie Rosine and Matt Bloom. Dr. Natalie Rosine is from North High School. Mr. Blumen is from East High School. The department chairs leading the science department. And tonight, both of these individuals are here to really talk to us about, if I can get my PowerPoint here to work, is to really make connections to our strategic plan, the work that they're doing with their teams at both North and East High School, specifically around the areas of effective collaboration and instructional coherence. I had an opportunity 2 weeks ago to be able to pop into this meeting and really see the leadership of these two individuals and what they're doing, how they're bringing the teams together to really move our district forward in the area of science. So I want to just for the celebration of the work the science department are doing, the celebration of these two individuals, but also for the board to be able to hear directly from our department chairs the work that they're leading each day that are really aligned to our strategic plan, again, around effective collaboration, instructional coherence. With that, I'm going to hand it over to the two individuals. I'm not sure who's going to kick it off first. All right, Dr. Rosine.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Gordon, for inviting Mr. Bowman and myself to actually come and spend some time this evening with the Board of Education and informing them as well as the district about what we have had the opportunity to be able to do to try to actually meet the priorities that are laid before us in our strategic plan. If the overall goal is to move forward together in pathways of excellence, then putting these things in place in every single classroom is super important. In the work that we actually do on both sides of the river at St. Charles East as well as at St. Charles North. Mr. Bowman and I have both been educators here within the district. Mr. Bowman has been here for 16 years. This is my 28th year in the district. And I moved to North when it actually opened, and I taught at St. Charles High School before that. And being able to have a structure that would actually kind of promote leadership within our district, allowed both of us to be able to move and to be able to represent our district and our department and the students that are in our charge in a brand new way to be able to do that. And so we have had kind of the unique opportunity to be able to work and to be able to utilize our school improvement days, our PLC time, to be able to effectively communicate and collaborate with the people that are in our charge, to be able to look at the areas of biology and chemistry and earth and space science and physics, as well as all the electives that we are fortunate enough to be able to offer within our district, to be able to make sure that the students in those classes have common experiences, to be able to learn about the priority standards that we have actually set forth and agreed upon across river, so that if a student does move across the river or even changes teachers at semester time, that the instruction that they will be receiving is seamless throughout the classrooms that we actually happen to have. And so coming on board and being able to work with our teachers to be able to ensure that the same things are happening, the same level of rigor, the labs that are actually there, while also being able to celebrate the creativity and the autonomy that the teachers actually have within this and how they actually make those standards come to life, is something that we have worked really hard to be able to do in order to meet these strategic priorities. Because we are both new within the department chair role that promotes leadership within our district, we have had to kind of work with the district administration as well as our building administration to be able to kind of help us with different things or act as sounding boards. And so we definitely want to take the time tonight as well, before Mr. Bowman here is going to kind of go into what actually happens within some of our classrooms, to thank our sounding boards, whether it actually happens to be at district level with the Office of Learning and Teaching, Tina King, Gary Hansen, and TOSA on assignment this year, Dr. Monica Bailey, have been very instrumental in helping us as far as resources, different ways to actually bring the priority standards and make them more tangible to all levels of our students, to be able to say that success is possible, and it does not matter at what level your class you actually happen to be enrolled in, that success is always possible. At our district or at each of our high schools, our principals, Jim Richter and Shanna Lewis, as well as our administrative liaisons, Lisa DeAndre and Stan Nemec, have been very instrumental, as good sounding boards, listening to us, meeting with us on a weekly basis. And then, just to be able to kind of work together to be able to establish those goals that we actually have, so that it brings our PLCs closer together. There's been a lot of emphasis on PLCs in the past, but there really has been kind of working with these to effective collaboration, instructional coherence in order to actually reach that culture of dignity where all people feel comfortable walking into a science classroom, and what that actually looks like has fostered, I would say, daily, hourly. People are kind of always talking about things within within offices and those kind of things. And it is a huge shift in the way that we actually do business within this district. And so I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk to you a little bit about what happens on both sides of the river on a daily basis.
Thanks again for having us here. Matt Bowman, St. Charles East, Science Department Chair. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice a little bit. It's come back here and there. Dr. Rosine and I don't go a day without speaking to each other. Like we honestly, truthfully don't. And I cannot remember a time working in the past 16 years where I've collaborated that much with my counterpart, whether it be another teacher or even anyone else at similar position across the river. That is a huge cultural shift that is happening within our buildings and is definitely starting to happen across the entirety of the district. So when we look at those strategic priorities about effective collaboration, I mean, we're starting to have those conversations and then some. We were lucky enough to be empowered by the group at LNC to allow us to start this process of our curriculum assessment and instruction practices. And again, that's new to us. We've gone through many of the CDT processes, CAI processes, where it's been led by a district administrator and teachers have been actively involved, but this is different. They're allowing us to sort of run that charge. They're providing us the resources in which we can actually build off of that. And because of that, we're building teacher autonomy, we're building buy-in, and it's really, truly powerful. In our most recent CAI meeting that Dr. Gordon was able to visit, we had a moment of really strong discourse amongst educators. Within that room, there was probably over 100 years of educator experience, very passionate individuals. And we were able to talk to one another cross river, totally debating a topic, totally debating an entire pedagogical shift, and do so in a manner that was civil, respectful, and honestly reflective for all of us. And I truly do believe that this position that you guys have invested in and I know work together really hard for is something that we are not taking for granted. It's something that we feel very, very lucky to be a part of. And it is truly shifting the culture as we speak about PLCs and about student learning. For the first time in 16 years, I am engaged in a PLC where we are looking specifically at what are the groups of students doing and how are we responding? Not just what are we covering, what are we getting through, how do we get to the final exam, make sure we cross our T's, dot our I's. It's truly becoming a collaborative process where now our instructional coherence is really about responding to the groups. And so we think about those 4 PLC questions, which I'm sure you guys have all heard. I don't want to bore you with. We're really honing in on the what so that we can really start to develop that how and how we can get further along and how we can really try to get that growth going even further. We are truly part of a much larger picture where this fostering of this leadership, this idea that we are working with LNT, we're working with district, we're working with building administrations, so that there truly is teacher autonomy, teacher voice, all with the same lens, because we all want the same thing. We want students to be successful. And this is the first time in 16 years that I truly do feel recharged. Not that the 15 years before were awful, don't get me wrong. This is different. There's a cultural shift happening within the high schools, and I'm really happy to be part of it.
Board, any questions for our guests?
Yeah, what roadblocks are you still seeing, or what things would help you further the mission that Dr. Gordon's laid out?
I think some of the roadblocks are time in being able to do that. We are very, very lucky that we do get PLC time throughout the week. We get time to actually be able to meet in the groups that we have. Teachers are, I would feel like when Matt talks about the cultural shifts of things, that sometimes you could actually meet as a PLC and you could argue as a PLC, not have, not come to actually any agreement, and then potentially go back into your classroom and be like, well, like, here's what it is, and I can reach those, and I'm just going to do whatever I want, and they can do whatever they want. And this cultural shift, it really does have people talking and agreeing and kind of working through some of those things. It just takes time sometimes to actually be able to reach consensus with things. I do think that we have a lot of really good resources available for us already with things, but we also have the next generation science standards and the NGSS. And so part of our curriculum assessment and instruction team is looking at the resources that we currently have for our students and how well they actually address the NGSS standards and how well they can actually help our students grow within the district. And so that's kind of where we are right now. So we don't, necessarily know. We're kind of taking a hard look at like what we actually currently do and how we can actually meet that goal. Because that's how the students are assessed on the Illinois Science Assessment, with a third of it coming from bio, a third of it coming from physical science as well, and then a third coming from Earth. And so we are doing kind of a deep dive into that to look at what our students are currently doing in science and how to continue to actually help in those particular areas.
Just in addition to that, the data analysis for us is huge. And that's something that as classroom educators with a background, we've been relying heavily on learning and teaching to also pull from that and get resources and bounce ideas off of that. It's a learning year for a lot of our educators as we go through this PLC process. It is a revamp. Like it is not what we have been currently doing in PLC. And so because of that, I just think like Dr. Rosina said, there is an essence of time, but there's also this essence that we don't want to sit around and wait. We don't want to go slow. We want to do this right, but like, we're not okay with the way that things are. I don't want me to say it that way. We're not okay with the level of achievement. We want more. We know our kids can get more. We know we can provide more, and we want to do the work well. And so that's really what we're trying to accomplish as we get through there. And we're getting the support at the district level, at the building level. And the collaboration between the two of us has really helped to sort of build in that teacher autonomy as well.
Thank you both.
Thank you for coming. You heard a lot tonight from the community, and we did an audit to find out where our needs were as a district, and where it really struck us was rigor, that we have pockets of rigor rather than consistent. That when you talk about all kids being successful, there's often the feeling that we lower the standards so the kids will be successful. And I think as well as anybody, that isn't what we're intending to do. We want all kids to be successful at the level of proficiency for the standard and higher. So tell me, if you could briefly, how you're dealing with that. I want kids to be successful, but I got to hold high standards. And how do I change my instruction as a teacher to go there when my content is also really important? So.
One of the things that the level of rigor that we started to develop with the CAI process is an accelerated pathway. And so we're starting to look at what does that pathway look like so that we can increase the number of AP classes available for those students that should choose that, but also addressing to the standard in its entirety. When we first looked at the next generation science standards, I believe in 2013, when they first launched out, we did focus specifically on content. And it was just, what are we going to teach? Make sure we cover all of it. And now, since it's been many years, thankfully, the district has provided us opportunities to go to professional development, to meet with people like Dr. Carol Baker, one of the writers of the framework. We started to address, like, there are 3 dimensions to this teaching. There are 3 dimensions to this learning, and there's 3 dimensions to this assessment. And so a lot of our work is trying to work with learning and teaching, trying to work with our teachers to understand that we need to shift. We need to shift our instructional practices to teach all 3 of those dimensions. the content, the skill, and almost what we would call the metacognitive process. All three of those then need to be assessed. And that's kind of been our growing effort with our teachers. And our teachers have been willing to understand and look and reflect that right now we have assessments that are heavy in content and we need assessments that are heavy in all three. And that's a lot of our CAI work, so we can get kids up to what that standard is actually saying.
I would also add that one of the things that I feel like this district has been very kind of forthcoming about is exactly what you mentioned. There are priority standards in place in every classroom at every level within this district, and that is what we hold every student to. We do not lower the bar for them. So if they have trouble meeting that standard, then it behooves us to actually look at what scaffolds or what supports or what different types of teaching strategies we can bring to the table and utilize any member that actually happens to be within our teams. If it's a PLC team, if we need to pull in a special educator, if we need to actually look at people on the outside that have actually written about that, then that is what we are called to do, because that is what our students need in order to reach that standard. Excuse me. Thank you very much.
One thing I wanted to say was thank you very much for your presentation. I really appreciated the information, and one of the things that really sunk in for me was hearing you, Mr. Bowman, articulate very effectively the difference between where you have seen your role in the past and how you're seeing it now, not just as a department chair, but as with regards to collaboration and PLC work and the paradigm shift. That's pretty spectacular. And one of the things, I am not speaking for the board, I'm saying one of the things that I wanted when we hired a new superintendent was a paradigm shift with regards to collaboration, and hearing that from your perspective is pretty powerful, that it has begun, and that you're thirsty for more. Not that teachers aren't that way anyway, but to hear it playing out is pretty cool. So thank you so much for articulating that. That was super appreciated, and I appreciate the presentation. So thank you.
Just a quick one from me. So it sounds like you were able to garner some pretty good buy-in right away from staff. Was there any initial resistance to new PLC processes? How did you wrestle with that? And what maybe advice might you have for others who may have similar experiences if there's any initial resistance to the new processes?
I think a lot of it is, and I'll speak specifically for myself and let Dr. Rosinas respond as well. A lot of it is kind of diving in with the Keating work and looking specifically at, how does that work progress? And there's a learning curve to that. And I think for a lot of the teachers, when you first take a look at it, oh, this is just, their new initiative of paperwork and stuff to fill out. But when you really start to dive into what it's saying, it's like, no, this is different. Like, this is truly looking at student work and responding to student work, which is different than us just looking at averages and tests. Don't get me wrong, we love content at the high school level, at all levels, not just science. And that has been a growing pain for some of us, is trying to get past. It's not that the content's not important. It is, absolutely. But it's more than just the content. It's how we're getting there. And I think that's been a lot of the growth process.
I would agree. I think that this cultural shift that we're actually seeing within science in a lot of areas, because many other areas are going through the CAI process as well, is just, it's exciting, it's invigorating, it's hard work, it's tiring, but I think that people are actually driven by looking at coming to the table, not just with, my kid's got an 87, your kid's got a 73, like what in the heck actually happens to be going on? But you really are focusing and bringing examples of student work to the table to be able to look at what skills, what knowledge they're actually bringing and where they actually meet or exceed, and also where they might be
developing still within that particular topic or idea. And so then it's not just you trying to actually be able to figure out how to address the students in your classroom, but there is a whole team as you actually look at our students within any particular course or any particular level and saying, what do we actually need to do? And then it is really kind of this fervor almost of idea generating where, it is like new ideas, or I don't know, I'm going to go figure that out, or people coming to talk to you about it, or going to talk to a colleague in a different content area. That's a skill or something that's happening within your class that might also be a co-curricular skill. And so things really are changing. As we actually try to be able to make those things within the strategic plan and within Keating's work kind of come to life.
Thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to thank both of you for hanging out with us for a little bit longer than I thought. But quite honestly, I had never met the two of you other than a hallway here, hallway there, but never really sat and was able to really see your leadership in action. And I think the title of my email to the two of you was in awe. And I really was watching the two of you work with your team. And I was in awe of your team as well. But specifically about your leadership was really inspiring to see, because Matt, as you said, that was a challenging conversation in that room. It was there was a good debate going on. It was a healthy debate going on in there. But the way the two of you supported your peers, teachers in that room to continue having that healthy conversation to where you felt like you're in a good place to move forward. It was great to see. And it was why I wanted to bring the two of you forward and highlight the science department. Because oftentimes the superintendent, chief academic officers, and others, we talk about the strategic plan. But I thought these two are the best to bring forward right now of actually living the strategic plan and seeing our strategic plan in action in the early stages of it. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for what you're doing for D303 for our students and your peers. It really is impressive. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And I apologize for my intro there. I was a little off. I was listening to everybody. You guys might want to just stay for 2 seconds. Just to give you I was trying to juggle what I was going to put out first, recognizing, trying to get them out of there as well. But I sincerely appreciate our community, all the different community members coming out from the different neighborhoods from across our district. I recognize that the boundaries are incredibly challenging. I've participated in boundary realignment a few times, and it's never easy. It's incredibly challenging, but I do appreciate our community coming out, giving their input into this process. The piece that I would highlight is these are the drafts. This is where we're working from. Your feedback in the survey that's now closed, really important. Feedback that you've offered via email that I believe I've got almost everybody. I don't think I have everybody yet. I think I have 3 or 4 more outstanding ones to do, but I'll get those as well. It really does help inform the board. We truly are, the board administration are in the listening phase. That's what we're doing right now. So we're adding another date to the calendar. On January 11th, we're going to be putting on a webinar. Be very similar in nature. I'll do a quick introduction. Rob from RSP will then kind of talk about some different things that he's learned through the survey. So he's taking all that data and saying, okay, what are some themes that we're seeing in that survey? And he'll bring those to the community in the board. On January 16th, at the Learning Teaching Committee, this is where the board with RSP, Rob will be in person here, where we'll start having different conversations about the different scenarios that are in front of the board that evening. Again, trying to really figure out where are we going? What are we doing with the different scenarios? Really, you'll have Rob really pushing the board on different ideas and different concepts that we would like to be moving forward. January 29th, Rob will be joining us via Zoom if needed. But again, another opportunity to be talking about the different concepts. Where are we at? At this January 29th, generally speaking, where our board is at, generally that's the time that we're going to be recommending something to move forward for the February 12th meeting on February 12th. That's where the board will take action. But I just wanted to make sure that the community knew where we're at, where we're going. We are in the listening phase of the current concept 1 and concept 2 of elementary, middle, and high school. Again, January 11th, Rob RSP will be reviewing all of that data and then making some decisions about what we would bring forward based on some of that feedback. Board, any comments on that? You comfortable with that timeline of where we're at? I know I reached out on January 11th. Everybody's comfortable with this added date.
One thing that I want to say to the community members is thank you so much for your outreach, for the respectable discourse, for again, just working with us and administration on solving these problems. So I want to say thank you. Again, I've had a number of coffees, emails, phone conversations, and everybody in our community has been nothing but gracious, nothing but wonderful to talk with, expressing concerns, throwing out ideas, other things. So at least from my seat, I definitely want to say thank you to the community.
I just want to make sure. So just, we have concurrence from the board. Everyone is comfortable with this timeline. I want to note January 29th is when we will need to come to consensus, at least in terms of scenario or scenarios to bring forward.
I'm comfortable with it, but I'm also wanting to be sure that we are flexible enough, because having seen how we do the process, when we bump into a place where we aren't quite sure, we send it back to committee, which I think is the right thing to do. So flexibility wise, it looks like we could get one more meeting in before the 12th. Am I right?
Potentially.
A committee
Potentially.
meeting or a special
Potentially.
board meeting or something. I just want to, yeah, I know that we want February 12th to be the last date, but we haven't quite hit that in our process. But I think our community deserves as much time for us to hear what we're thinking and talking about, but also in making a decision, because their lives are impacted. So I'm just saying it out loud, that if we have to add another meeting, I assume that the board would be willing to go that direction.
Yeah, I think so. The other thing I would like to see and encourage to the committee chairs, we have a couple of meetings coming up, learning and teaching, business services as well. So if there's an opportunity to have this on those agendas, if nothing else, for the board to share questions that are, percolating at that time, and we can get those out there into the superintendent administration, I think that would be helpful.
So to that end, well, we do have a business services on the 21st, I want to say. We have a draft agenda now. Is there anything, like, I know Rob's going to be presenting updated maps back, right? Which I think is the most important meeting. Is there an opportunity for anything on the 21st?
We were thinking about that, but a lot of it is allowing Rob and their team to really digest all the data and get it back to us. So we really need to kind of follow. Once we hit January 11th, I think that's when we're going to start seeing some different pieces to it. But early on, we're going to have to allow the board and RSP to see all that data before you can make some real headway into that work.
So to tie to that, because there's an L&T meeting next week, there was some confusion about that RSP was going to give the board data on December 15th. And we talked about that there were people who thought we were going to have a meeting on the 15th. So there's no meeting, but will there be a chance for the board? So I think I know the answer to this, but if the board has that information and we're thinking about it, you want us to wait till Rob has had a chance to discuss it with us? What's your thinking
So,
at the board table?
yeah, I think there's two things. The 15th, the board will receive all of the survey data back. What we're gonna do for the community is make sure we're gonna have to run through it real quick, make sure we redact any identifying markers, and then we'll post that as well. So the community has the same thing the board's looking at. But from there, it's really giving the board some time to review it. I'm sure it's going to be a few pages long. And making sure then that's when I think some feedback back to me, be it at, as Mrs. Fairgrieve said, is it at a committee meeting where you're saying, hey, we want to make sure this is looked at or this is looked at is the right time. Quite honestly, sooner the better. We have different ideas that we need RSP to look at is going to be critical as we look at, this is, to your point, Mrs. McCabe, this is still a tight timeline. So, because here's the other piece, every move we make is another move to another community. Every move that's made is another cog in this wheel that continues to turn, and it will turn into another community member who is going to want their say and feeling like they're not being listened to. So this is so that's why I'm really preaching. If you have different ideas from different pieces, you know, I need to know about it so I can get it in front of RSP as soon as possible.
And you can certainly do that, but I would advocate as well, bring it to the committee
Yeah.
so that it's transparent.
So to that end, right, if we're gonna get the results on the 15th, is it worthwhile to put it on the business services agenda for the 21st?
I think
Then let's do that for the 21st to have a discussion of the feedback. Again, I know it's a busy time for the community and everything else, but I'd much rather get it out there, have it discussed, so that we're not coming into January 11th with all this through the holidays. At least get the board, the board's thoughts on it then.
So then briefly, looking to the other co-chair of L&T, we won't put that on the agenda for Monday, the 18th. So that gives the board more time to look at the data. We will still take comments from community members if anybody wants to continue to give us information, but people should expect that we won't. Good with that.
And just to add to that, and kind of what Mrs. McCabe and what Thomas mentioned too, we really do appreciate the feedback. We've had a number of wonderful conversations, emails, calls, in-person conversations. It is really helpful. We are listening. We're reading every single email, every bit of information that's coming across our desks. We are taking it into consideration. There's a lot of good learnings that have come out of these conversations as well. So please keep that feedback coming from your other community members, families that you're talking to. We want to hear it, and it only helps us to make a better decision in the long run. So if you're listening in at home, please do that. Anybody in the audience, please continue to provide that to us.
I just want to add that I'd like us to continue. I'd like the public to continue, please continue. I've had a lot of very pleasant conversations with people, agree, disagree. I've had a lot of pleasant conversations with people. I appreciate that. I do appreciate the idea as well of having as many opportunities to talk about this. Frankly, one of the decisions, a decision we made 12 years ago is part of the problem that caused part of the problem that we have right now, because we rushed that decision and we didn't have enough information. So I would like for us to make certain, in whatever way we need, that we make certain that we're making a correct decision. I don't want to be coming back here in 3-4 years and see that we have not really achieved the goal of balancing the schools.
Okay, last thing, just wanted to bring you back in time a little bit, board, to the November 27th meeting around learning teaching, the SAR report, where we were able to demonstrate a lot of really important things. I think Mr. Kuchert really did a nice job of summarizing at the end of the meeting We saw a lot of strong student growth and proficiency, especially at the K-8 levels. But some of our most animated conversations happened around the high school discussion, around the work that we're doing with staff, what we're doing as an administration to continue to grow our students. But I think one of the most important things that came out of that night was for administration staff in our community to see the board's urgency and moral imperative and responsibility to each of our students, so our students can build their pathways to excellence. I believe it's important for our community to hear those robust conversations and sometimes animated conversations about it. I recognize that for board members, especially board members who've been on the board for a while, you know, we want to see change. We want to see change sooner rather than later, and that the students who are sitting in front of us today, that they're getting these great opportunities for growth and proficiency. You know, the work that Dr. Rosine and Mr. Bowman spoke about, that's happening across our district for each and every one of our students. But I just wanted to recognize the board. Yes, was there a challenging conversations at time, but I think it shows the board's that moral imperative to improve our organization and continuing pushing their one employee, the superintendent, to continue driving that work as an organization. So thank you for that. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon, for all of those comments. Board member reports on committee meetings. Shall we start with learning and teaching?
Sure thing. Actually, perfect segue. Thank you there, Paul. Learning and teaching met back on Monday, November 27th. We had a really robust conversation regarding the annual student achievement report for school year 2022-2023. As Paul mentioned, you know, overall, there was some things to celebrate and certainly some areas to work on, and we will be working earnestly to continue to move this district in the right direction, academically speaking. As always, we encourage everybody to go back, take a look at the recordings. The SAR should be available in its entirety online as well. So we implore you to review that. A couple of the topics that we covered: graduation rate, average SAT super score, climate and culture survey results. We spoke about ELA proficiency, math proficiency, science proficiency, and then the corresponding action steps in order to improve performance in all of those areas. We spoke regarding college and career readiness indicators. So again, please do review that discussion. There was a lot of really good discussion amongst board members and administration. And I think there's a theme here. We love your feedback. Please keep your feedback coming. We want to hear how you feel about the direction of the district. And we will do our best to receive that feedback and implement as necessary. The next L&T meeting, as we mentioned earlier on in this meeting, will be next Monday, December 18th at 5:30.
Thank you, Mr. Kuchert. Business services.
Thank you. Business services met back on November 27th. We had a pretty packed agenda. There was going to be a couple items in consent agenda tonight that we covered. First, we went through the RSP enrollment report and what the process was that we've embarked on here for our redistricting. Then we went through our fiscal year 2023 audit. The auditors came back with positive results and also gave very great feedback to the team. I believe that some of the things I heard was very professional, very responsive, and no issues with any internal controls or other things. So Paul and team, thank you for that. We got our normal Mid-Valley and D303 financial reports, no areas of concern in those. We also had our hearing for, or our notice of public hearing for the tax levy, again, which is part of our agenda tonight. We went through, for the first time, I think this is the first pass at a program cost analysis. So earlier in the year, we asked administration to come back looking at a specific set of programs and our cost for those programs. We've also asked Paul to come back with a, through this year's goals, a kind of a standardized cost per pupil for each of these programs. And the, Justin and the team presented what that looks like. Again, that's kind of part of us getting our fiscal house in order so that when we do evaluate these programs, we're evaluating them with the eye towards taking, here's what our costs are out of it. And then starting to have conversations in LNT to focus on the actual results and the outcomes. So it's a very positive first step in that move. Next, we covered the Cranston Meadows property lease. This is some property that we received, from the builders when they were doing it. The land is not suitable to build on, and so to build any schools on or anything like that. So we're exploring the leasing to the park district, and they have some plans to expand their park there. We also received a construction update. Things are progressing. We're making progress. I believe on the agenda tonight under consent agenda, we have finally finalized the Pepper construction agreement. So we've been kind of working without paper there. That is now finalized. That's for us in consent. Next, the Norton Creek playground replacement is there. I think that's also on consent. That is for some inclusive equipment that'll be there. It's a complete refresh of the playground. We've also were able to take advantage of some good pricing, I believe, prior to the pandemics that was locked in. So hopefully saving our taxpayers some good money there. We talked about the updates to the Redling Facility Lounge furniture. Again, taking advantage of some pre-pandemic pricing. Again, that was all for the team and for Justin and Amanda. That was really excellent to hear how we are going about doing those savings for the community, taking advantage of some of these contracts that we do have access to and the buying power that's associated with it. And then finally, there was an additional item for the univent replacement at Haynes. So HVAC equipment, I believe. So that's it. Mr. Lackner, I don't know if you had anything else to add.
I would just add that we also covered the financial audit, and the audit was returned with highest possible marks for effective statutory management of the monies that the district manages.
Okay, and I think we already talked about the next business services committee meeting is on December 21st at 5:30.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, do we have any update from a DPTO?
Yep, I was able to go to their November meeting. They won't have one in December. Mr. Harvey does an outstanding job of explaining the workings of the district. So I sat I was very impressed with how he can articulate all the things that we do here at the board table. As you can imagine, the conversation was pretty focused on the boundary conversations, and this was before we did the public meetings. So they were asking questions about that, as well as their focus was on DPT, or was on the school PTOs, and particularly Davis and Richmond. What will we do with our money? Fox Ridge being a brand new school opening up, Lincoln closing. So there were those conversations. I think they'd like Mr. Attaway to come and help them through that process in the near future. So it was a good meeting, and they are a great group of people who really dedicate their time to helping our schools to do their best work. So thanks.
Okay. I know policy committee did not meet. Is there anything we need to add?
We're meeting next week.
Okay. Okay, and that is on the
18th, right
18th?
after the LMP.
Okay. Before, right? At 5?
That's what I meant. I believe.
It is very busy time. Okay, so moving on then to consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 8A through 8P?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. McNally. Thank you, Mr. Lentz, for the second. Is there any discussion at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Yes, Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Leffner,
Abstain.
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes. Motion passes 6 yes, 1 abstain. And now we will move to section 9 on the agenda, which is for action. Item A, resolution to adopt the 2023 aggregate tax levy. Can I have a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the 2023 aggregate tax levy?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Bell and Mrs. McCabe for the second. Any discussion at this time? We have Mr. Attaway at the table to help guide that discussion.
Mr. Attaway, do you want to make just a quick opening?
Sure. Excuse me, I feel like I'm losing my voice. So just as a reminder, the final aggregate levy that is presented tonight remains unchanged from the tentative levy that was presented earlier this year. It also reflects the levy revenue that was included in the adopted budget for this fiscal year. And as a reminder, the district submits the entire levy to the county in whole dollars. So unlike some state funding, there is no hold harmless or base funding amount. The board sets the entire levy amount each year. So that can get a little confusing because typically when we discuss the levy, we talk about just the increase from the previous year. But what the board is actually voting on is the entire levy amount or the entire $188,700,000, not just the portion of that is the increase over the previous year. So once the board approves a levy tonight, we will file the documentation with DuPage and King County offices prior to the statutory deadline, which is the last Tuesday in December or this year, December 26th.
Can I ask a question? I'm a little concerned that there have been comments made that may not be accurate about we are raising the taxes 6.5%. Could you explain who really does determine what the rate is and all of that?
Yeah, so there are a couple pieces that go into that. The board, as I mentioned, the board sets a levy in whole dollars. We don't actually set a tax rate at the school district. The tax rate is the final product. Once the board establishes the levy dollar amount, the county compares it to the total taxable value, and that sets the tax rate. So that the county clerk sets the tax rate based on that calculation. The other piece of that is, while our levy is, I believe, 6.76% for the capped funds, that is not what will actually be extended to the community. We are capped because of the property tax extension limitation law to 5%, to the lesser of 5% or CPI. Now, CPI happens this year to be above 5%, but we're capped at 5%. So the question is, why are we levying above 5% when we know that we're going to be reduced down? And the answer to that is we don't know all of the factors that go into the into the tax levy calculation at the time of the tax levy. So once it's extended to the community, once all the final numbers come in, the county clerk reduces the amount that is extended to the community down to the statutorily allowed amount, which is below what we're actually levying. Also, when we say that we're levying 6.76%, or if it gets reduced down to 5%, that doesn't mean the tax bills are going to go up 5%. That means that overall, we are increasing the amount that we're asking for by 5%, but it really depends on how much a person's individual house increases in appraised value, how much it increases compared to their neighbors, how much residential increases or decreases compared to commercial properties. So there's a lot of factors in flux that will influence how much an individual property tax bill is going to change. That because we're saying that we're increasing our levy amount 5%, that is not a one-to-one correlation between the levy amount and tax bill increases.
It's also includes new revenue in the county as well, right? So example, I think it was like $22 million in new revenue comes in for new businesses, other things that get split amongst that. The other thing, so Justin, one of the things that was said at previous business services meeting, right, is that it's in the district's best interest to always ask for the maximum amount every year. Otherwise, we would lose out on revenue. And, again, as we heard tonight from taxpayers, right, especially fixed income folks and other things, a lot of concern around how we're managing the money and what we're asking to. I know we have certain obligations, especially our salaries, right, being the largest obligation that we have. And a big portion of the salary increase is directly correlated to our CPI, right? I like the steps that we've taken this year to look at the 5-year budget. One of the things that I think I'd like to start looking at next year is how we can keep our budget, as close to flat as possible, especially with all the obligations that we have from a capital improvement perspective, and all the other construction and everything else. So that's one thing that as we come and we go into the next year, again, knowing we have other contractual obligations that are going to drive expense side of our budget. What else can we do to keep things as flat as possible? Again, also knowing the calculation is completely out of our hands and that we're asking for, here's what our budget amount is. So that's my ask to you. I'm sure you probably hear it from other board members as well, but that's my ask.
I share a similar request. We've talked about this a little bit as well. As we hear from the community, many of us feel the same way. I mean, we live in this community also. And so, our taxation changes as well. And so I'd like to echo that sentiment as well as how can we figure out, strategic and creative ways to keep that tax burden, although I recognize costs just continue to go up. Right. And so the cost of the overall district is likely going to be more expensive next year than it is this year. And so creative ways for us to keep the tax burden down on each of those folks who've spoken and those who haven't spoken as well, because I share those sentiments too.
Yeah, and that's absolutely something that we can look through, that we can do during the budgeting process. I mean, we start the budget pretty early to allow ourselves, 9-10 months to put it all together. So that is absolutely something that we can start looking at in our budgeting process for next year.
Any other discussions? Okay, Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Yes, Mr. McNally,
No.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
No.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mrs. Speargrave,
Yes. Motion passes, yes at 5 and 2 at no. Moving to item B on the agenda, high school course recommendations for the 2024-2025 school year. Can I have a motion to approve the high school course recommendations for the 2024-2025 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. McNally, Mr. Kuschert. Is there any discussion at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
yes, Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Can I ask a question just for one moment? I know I missed my opportunity right before that.
Okay, and then we'll rerun the vote again.
Yeah, I just had a quick questions regarding the prerequisite for the honors option for pre-calculus and the AP option for pre-calculus. It's something I think I asked previously during L&T as to which moves into the pathway. Christine, Dr. Igo, do you recall that question? Just the difference between the honors pre-calculus and the AP pre-calculus option and which serves as a prerequisite for which. I just couldn't recall it and I couldn't find it in my notes.
Certainly. So the honors pre-calculus prepares students to take Calc AB. The AP pre-calculus prepares kids to take Calc BC. Is that what you're asking me for?
Right, and
But they're
can you
not
go in,
prerequisites though.
right, because
That's true. You're right. They're not. They just prepare.
Either from.
Correct. Thank you for
Okay.
clarifying. Yes.
So it's not a firm prereq, but it's a precursor, so you.
Yes. So the way that it's written up into the course catalog indicates that this will prepare students to do X. We allow students, or we will be for the first time, allowing students to take, we'll have the option for honors pre-calc to take the AP exam, but it won't be required. students who enroll in the pre or in the AP pre-calc will be required to take the exam, but they'll have covered the same content.
Got it. Thank you very
Plus
much.
plus some in the pre AP.
Thanks.
Is there any other discussion at this time? Okay, Ms. Marsan, would you please begin again with the roll call vote?
Yes, of course. Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Speargreen.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Moving to section 10 on the agenda for information, there are 4 of our standing items that are included in the board packet. The D303 financial report, Mid-Valley financial report, our FOIA or Freedom of Information Act requests, and district enrollment. New business. Does anyone have any new business that they would like to bring forward at this time?
I do. I have 2 items that I'd like to bring forward. So first item, over the last several months, we've had a lot of things on Richmond, Davis, Richmond especially, and the challenges that were faced there when the schools were originally combined. One thing that, Paul, that I'd like, and again, I don't know if this goes to L&T or if it's a full board, but I would like to have the admin come back to the board with what the plans are to avoid those failures that we have. Like, what does the new building look like? What is the new structures that we're putting in place? The services offerings, right? During the discussion, we did have some conversation about how services were being split between Davis and Richmond. Staff members are traveling back and forth. What does that look like? So the concern is really, presenting back to the community, how are we going to avoid these challenges that we've already faced?
So you're asking for an implementation plan?
Yes.
Okay, so that would go back to committee. So to learning and teaching committee. Okay, thank you.
And then the second item, I know I've had individual conversations with a number of board members. You've heard from me on this as well, the concern about where we're at with the output of last year, right? I know it's postmortem. I know we hadn't implemented PLCs yet. There's a number of challenges there. One thing that, again, from my ask to admin, and again, sorry guys, I'm giving L&T items, I think. But what are some of the remediation steps for things that we've identified as issues? Again, we heard again from community today about, 50% of kids are not at standards and other things, right? These are actionable stats. I really very much appreciate the department chairs coming in and talking to us about it. I'm going to have the opportunity to go and sit in on some PLCs as well. But again, just some comprehensive feedback for the board and again, for the community on what we're doing about some of these things, right? I know it's part of the larger strategic plan and everything else, but I personally have a lot of concern with it. And I've heard quite a bit from the community about concern with the progress and everything else. And I'd like to bring something back to the community to assure them of the steps that we're taking.
Just to clarify,
Yeah.
since it's going to come to L&T. What exactly do you want, since we've talked a lot about the
Right.
PLC work, we talked about during the SAR conversation, we had there was a need for the board wanting more data coming in. So what is it exactly that you're looking for?
I think really I like some of the tangible things that are there. So one of the things that I know is in the budget, right? Summer school. We've had a lot of community members say, hey, my kids are behind. I would like the opportunity for more learning over the summer. What does that mean? Is the district offering this? We haven't been offering this in the past, right? That's one, right? But there are other things that I know that actions are being taken with either PLC or other things. And again, this is more of a question that's coming from a place of guys, I'm looking at these numbers. I'm a little overwhelmed with it. I know we have a big task here. What are some of the things? I'm not looking for comprehensive, but I'm looking for, hey, we know we have this task. We know these are the things that we're doing. Does that help, Beck?
Well, I guess we're going to talk about summer school. That's
Yeah.
on the agenda. I just want to be sure because I'll be really frank with you.
Yeah.
We do talk about what's going on at L&T during our L&T meetings, and we talk about when things will be presented and that we're going to bring things back and they're coming. So I want to be sure that we're giving you what you're looking for and not assuming that
Right.
we know. So I'm, if you have it's what's tangible are the kids, we're going to see iReady data.
Right.
We're going to look at our AP data for when that comes up. I mean, we're continually asking for more. And I think we'll be talking about this more at L&T about new assessments that are coming that will give us more during the school year information. So is that what you're looking for?
I mean, so one of the examples, and I thought it was a great example of like an issue that we identified in the numbers, right? So one of the things that we got feedback on that was implemented was the writing assessment in elementary, how we made a pivot. We did that. We saw an immediate increase, right? I'm maybe looking for at least an example of something where we've got some, we've talked quite a bit about math. We talked about, but give us something.
So within the student achievement report, and I just want to make sure, because like, that I get exactly what you're looking for. So that writing example is obviously in the student achievement report, like this is what we did, this is what we got. But you also see in the student achievement report, things like we're seeing an issue or a concern in this particular strand, and this is what we're doing to address it. Are you looking for me to pull those different pieces out and highlight, or are you looking for something more specific?
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Let me say, like, my biggest concern, at least right now, when I went through this, was that transition from 8th to high school and the fall off that we're
Oh,
seeing.
for sure.
Right? And so to me, that's, and if I pick on that one, that's the one that's standing out to me the most, right? Is we're prepping these kids, they're showing improvement, and then we're seeing this drop off. And so
Yeah, so like the things that we have in the report, and are to be like, we're saying that there's not enough rigor. Let's just take English language arts, right? Like, we don't believe that the complexity of the text is increasing from English 9 to English 10 to English 11. So what we've done is we're re-looking at that and reestablishing what is the text that students should be reading. Is that the kind of thing you're looking for, or are you looking for something? Or are you looking for data? Like, I'm just trying to understand.
I think if you have a good example of that, in the transition, like, I think that would be helpful. But again, it's mostly coming from again, we reviewed in November, essentially data from last year.
Right.
Right. The teams have been working and our teachers and everybody else have been working incredibly hard. Right. What I'd like to see is, hey, guys, here's I know you saw last year's data. Here's where we've already implemented some fixes.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, we can do that.
The other thing I would add, as we're doing that, if we can put timelines around these action plans.
Yeah.
So I'd like to understand, like in your example of English,
Mhm.
when is that going to be, finalized? What are the milestones? So
Okay, absolutely.
I also think that just hearing from the department chairs was wonderful. I believe that's part of our future agenda and initiatives as well, just to speak to what these chairs are doing and how it's working. So I would love to see, ongoing communication from them. It was great to see them, see their faces and see what they're working on and certainly celebrate the achievements of this process that we all believe is going to continue to move the needle positively. So even just like updates like that, what we're hearing and they were just sharing best practices and how their process worked. And so I like that. And Thomas, does that capture some of what you're hoping to see as well?
I think it's very impactful for the community, especially to hear that, right? I thought it was very powerful to hear that, hey, I've been at this 16 year, this is a paradigm shift for us, right? And again, I think we as a board have agreed hey, we need a paradigm shift in this, right? That's, why we brought in Dr. Gordon. That's why these changes are being made. So the more that we can see that and celebrate it and see results of it to share with the community, again, we heard people tonight, right? Like, are we getting the bang for our buck? Right? And I would like them to be able to put names to faces and to be able to see, hey, that there's hard work happening. So.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Igo. Okay, moving to citizen comments. We do have some citizen comments. I would like to ask Ms. Bobby Rail to come forward.
Good evening, Gordon, Dr. Gordon. I haven't stood before you before. I usually write letters, but I'm concerned with the demographic balance at the high school, between the two high schools. When you look at the middle schools, they were balanced when we went from 3 to 2, and now they've been updated again so that in concept 2, the middle schools are balanced, but when you look at the high school, there's an 8% disparity on a base of 18.5%. It's way too much. Wheaton is less than 1% between the two high schools, and Naperville is about 2%. And so when you look at that 8% disparity, that goes way back. We're doing boundaries now, and it has to be addressed. And so please drop that to that 2%, 3% level. Thank you. You really have work to do on this.
Thank you. Next, I would like to ask Ms. Diana Solstice forward, please.
Hello again. Just a couple quick comments from your October 31st financial report. Between your 2021 and 2022 year versus your 22-23 year, there was a 3.66% variance. The 23-24 currently is trending at 4.85. So why the 6.76? And I understand it's not 6.76, but I think in the effort of transparency, it would be good to show what are state and other funding groups versus what you're actually asking for in a tax levy so that it is understandable and transparent. I do understand also that it's county clerk who decides that. And so I'll be engaging in discussion with the county clerk in relation to some of that. When you look at expenses, salaries are in excess of 133 million, benefits are almost 38 million. And the retirement is 60 million for a total of almost $231 million, which is 83% of the expenditures. So we understand that it is significant to have good teachers and good administrators, but where do the serious cuts need to happen? It is disappointing because again, kudos to you who voted no, because I think a stay. I know you have to submit this at the end of the month to the county. I know you need all the funding you can get because programs and buildings and teachers and everything else are expensive. But this has to be looked at a serious level because it can't be sustained. And so I would just continue to encourage that when your fund balances are trending 3% down at around the 46% mark. Looking at some of those things as well, I think would be significant in the process. I've done many budgets, not just personal, but on private and public sector side. And I know the hard choices that need to be made. And I understand it's not easy. I understand that no matter what, you never win because some public is going to be complaining about something. But I do understand that it's possible and I would encourage that. So again, thank you for your time and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. And our final citizen comment this evening, may I ask Ms. Danielle Penman forward, please.
Hi, thank you. I know it's been a long day for everybody. I kind of just wanted to touch on a couple of points. Having heard the presentation and gone to different things, I want to just reflect back on two of the guiding principles that were used in making some of the decisions for our boundary changes, better educational opportunities and equitable student experience, and balancing the socioeconomic indicators. I don't think that's really been reached in some of our schools, especially at the high school level. I think now more than ever, if we're going to make boundary changes, I think it should be K through 12 and do a better job. I don't think the high schools have been effectively impacted. We still have East at a higher rate of low income over North. Academically, East is performing less, not as well as North. School ratings, North is rated unfortunately a 7. We've dropped over the last few years because of our academic performance, and East is only rated at a 5. I think overall, the performance of the elementary schools and middle schools have been a little improved, but they still need to do a lot better. I think when you're looking at the boundary changes, I think that some of the issues have been addressed at the elementary and middle school, but at the high schools, it's just not there yet. One of the things that I'm concerned about is we looked at the calendar of events and meetings. I was a family that was impacted by Fox Ridge being closed 5 years ago. And here we are 5 years now forward, and we're going to be reopening this school. I think there was a lot of decisions that were made without the whole picture being looked at, without all the key stakeholders involved. I think that you guys are doing a great job trying to get surveys and input from the community. But I challenge you to pause if need be. Have the courage to say, you know what, you're already having to request more information to be added to L&T and business services. And I think that it would behoove you for our community, but most importantly for our students, that if it doesn't look like these are not the best options in this draft, that we take a pause. As a community member who was negatively impacted by a swift closure of a school, I think that the community would be much more understanding if you took a pause and really took more time to make sure that everything is balanced. Right now, it's not. Another really interesting thing, just a caveat I wanted to add is our most populated, overpopulated elementary school buildings in this district are performing better than some of the ones that are not as populated. So when looking at the transitions from, and changes to elementary and middle school and high school, I think some of that should come into play too. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn to close session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or specific volunteers of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor in a park, recreational, or educational setting, or a volunteer of the public body, or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lentz. Thank you, Mr. McNally, for the second. Mrs. Marsan, would you please take the roll call vote?
Yes, Mr. Kuschert,
Yes.
Mr. Lackner,
Yes.
Mr. Lentz,
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe,
Yes.
Mr. McNally,
Yes.
Mrs. Bell,
Yes.
Mrs. Fairgrave.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. We will now adjourn to closed session at 8:19 PM.